I was 6 the first time my grandfather lifted me up in his arms and let me rest my hand on the wooden post marking the edge of our lake property. I remember the smell of the pines, the scratch of the rough timber, and his voice telling me, "One day, this land will be yours. Protect it, boy, because someone will always want what they didn't build." I never understood what he meant until the day Karen arrived. The sun was barely up when I heard the banging, sharp, metallic, impatient. By the time I got to the gate, she was already shouting, "You don't have the right to lock this gate." She screeched through the black metal bars like a bull seeing red. Her name was Karen, literally, HOA president, SUVs, and perfect suburban hair. Her weapon wasn't fists, it was rules, and she swung them like a hammer. Behind her, 2 men and a family of 4 stood with coolers, picnic bags, and fishing rods. Guests, uninvited ones. "Good morning," I said, sliding the lock back in place. "Can I help you?" "You know what this is?" she snapped. "The community watering trail runs through here. This is a shared recreational lake. You locking it presents a violation of Article 7.3 of the HOA bylaws, and I am here to enforce it." She pulled out her clipboard. Seriously, she brought a clipboard like she was delivering the 10 Commandments. "Actually," I said calmly, leaning on the state survey map behind the gate, "this lake and the land it touches, private, has been since 1956. No HOA jurisdiction." Her face twitched. "No," she barked. "Your grandfather donated easement rights. This whole area is connected to the Lakewood community. You are obligated to maintain shared access." I pulled a printed copy of our deed from my back pocket. I always carried it on summer weekends. It was like walking around with a shield. No easement on record. Sectioned and registered under my family's homestead. No shared access. No public right-of-way, I said, "including yours." She snatched the paper, scanned it, and threw it back. "This is fake," she hissed. "We're outdated. We've been using this trail for years. I know what's best for this neighborhood." And she said the line that set everything in motion. "If you don't open this gate, I will bring more people and I will force compliance. I own this community." I laughed. "You run the HOA? You don't own anything beyond those manicured lawns and matching mailboxes." She glared, that unnerving, pinched look, like she was silently counting all the ways she could ruin your life. The people behind her were silent. They probably thought I was some crazy loner blocking the public from fresh air. Karen's eyes shifted to them. "You see what kind of neighbor he is? Imagine being so selfish and small." The words bounced off me, but something deeper prickled under my collar. The sheer arrogance of rewriting history with your voice alone. That was when Karen crossed the line once more. She reached for the gate and tried to climb it. "Ma'am," I warned, watching her shoe scuff the paint, "this is criminal trespass." She froze, 1 foot caught between 2 bars. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm reminding you. If you pass this gate after being told the property line, law will be involved." Her jaw clenched. She slid down. "You haven't heard the last of this," she hissed. "We'll see who owns this lake when I bring legal action." Red triangle pointed down. She didn't bring legal action. Not then. Not yet. She brought backup. 2 days later, I woke up to find fishers parked on the side of my fence. Poles set up. Kids running through the trees laughing. And Karen, arms crossed, watching me from across the water. She had brought a group of residents, whispered sweet stories about a new accessible fishing area, and turned my grandfather's land into a battlefield. I approached slowly. My heart pounded, not from fear but rage. "Who invited you all here?" I said flatly. "Community invite," one of the men said. "Karen told us this area has been privately hogged for years. We're here to reclaim access." Reclaim access. Like I was some war criminal depriving the village of drinking water. I opened the laminated folder in my hand. Survey photos, GPS coordinates, plat maps, and recording letter from the county. Move your stuff, I said. Now. Or what? Karen chimed in. What will you do, Carl? You can't stop a community. I stared at her. No, but I can document violations. And unlike your false letters, I have real legal authority. I've already called the sheriff. She laughed. Oh, sweetie, good luck with that. Everyone knows the sheriff plays golf with our vice president. Except she was wrong. Sheriff Tom arrived 20 minutes later, hand resting near his belt. Morning, Carl, he nodded. Heard you got trespassers. I gestured at the crowd. There they are. Ignored warnings. Broke the gate lock. Claimed false easement. He turned to Karen. Ma'am, I'm going to need you and your party to move. Private land. She exploded. What? This is HOA property under recreational shared bylaws. This monster's been blocking it for years. Tom crossed his arms. Ma'am, this land was surveyed 5 years ago. No shared rights on file. You've been warned before. This is clear trespass. She opened her mouth, then shut it. Sheriff Tom only had to say one more thing. Next time you step beyond that gate, you'll be charged. Karen eventually gathered her stuff, red-faced and trembling. She pointed a shaking finger at me. You'll regret this. Maybe. But that day, all I felt was justified. Alive. Ready. Because for the first time, I truly understood what my grandfather meant. Someone will always want what you didn't build. And it was finally time to defend what I had inherited. Want to see what Karen does next, and how she tries to take over my lake with her HOA goons. Drop a comment and subscribe. It's just getting started. Ever been bullied by a HOA? This one's for you. If I'd known that one closed gate could rattle an entire suburban kingdom, maybe I would have put up 2. The day after Sheriff Tom warned Karen and her fishing brigade off my property, I spent hours walking the fence line, inspecting every bolt and post. I knew it wasn't just a one-off clash. Karen didn't lose. You couldn't lose something you never believed you were wrong about in the first place. No, Karen paused. And when people like her pause, they're just pulling back to swing harder. It started subtly. A strange car would idle across from my driveway around 7 a.m. The same time I walked down to the lake with coffee. A neighbor I'd barely spoken to in 5 years suddenly forgot that my driveway wasn't a public turnaround and started backing up onto my lawn. Twice a week, I found a folded note on my gate one morning. No name, just floral stationery, classic HOA hall pass. Your behavior is creating an unfriendly environment. We encourage you to reconsider your position on lake use for the goodwill of all. I laughed at first. Then I looked closer. The paper referenced a handful of incidents that had happened inside my property line between me and guests. Someone was watching. Someone had been logging every move. I kept a notebook starting that day. July 9th, 6:41 a.m. gray truck idling near Cedar Post. Not neighbors. July 11th, HOA letter, community unity meeting, gate lock scratches, gate camera offline. Within a week, I spotted the same silver Hyundai parked by the brush line at least 4 times. Each time idling, engine running, occupant invisible behind tinted windows. I started taking photos, pictures of them, pictures of a gate, pictures of every stolen moment they didn't think someone was watching. Around this time, neighbor interactions got weird. People I'd traded zucchini with for years suddenly shuffled past with eyes down. Gossip bounced through the street like a rubber ball. HOA members clustered at mailboxes, glancing toward my home. That's when I started hearing it. I heard Carl assaulted someone at the lake. I heard he keeps militia-style cameras on his trees. My friend said he's bullying the HOA over some obscure deed. None of it was true. But when an HOA president decides you're the enemy, you stop being a neighbor and become a narrative. Her narrative. I realized Karen wasn't just fighting me. She was working the crowd. turning my silence into suspicion. And that was deadly if I didn't respond. The official letter came with a stamp. Mandatory association meeting, subject, shared access violation and safety concerns time, 8 p.m. location, Lakewood Community Clubhouse. Mandatory. That word was doing some heavy lifting. I showed up 15 minutes early. The clubhouse lights were on. Cars already lined the driveway. When I entered, the room buzzed like a live wire. More than 40 people. HOA board members behind a fold-out table. A projection screen set up with the HOA seal like they were announcing the moon landing. And at the center, Karen, hair dusted, glasses perched, paper stacked. In her element, she smiled when she saw me. "Ah, Mr. Sanders. Glad you came," she said, voice echoing on mic. "We'll be addressing some behavioral concerns shortly." "I'm looking forward to your legal basis," I replied. She smirked. "Oh, we've prepared it." One by one, neighbors leaned toward her like disciples around a campfire. She passed out printed packets labeled Incident Log, Private Use and Obstruction Report, Sanders Property. My name felt like a headline. On June 5th, Mr. Sanders blocked the lake path with new fencing. On June 9th, Mr. Sanders verbally threatened lawful guests. On June 14th, pictures show aggressive signage at lake boundary. One person raised their hand. "That's not aggressive. Those signs have been up for years," they said. Karen didn't even look. "We're not here to argue feelings," she said. "We're here to protect our community." She walked to the screen, clicking her remote. A picture of my grandfather's sign flashed up. "Private property. No unauthorized access." "Does this look welcoming?" she asked the crowd. My jaw tightened. She was framing me as some hostile guard dog. And that was when I recognized the game. She couldn't win in court. So she was going to try and win in public. After she finished presenting her report, Karen turned. "Mr. Sanders, you will have 3 minutes to respond." 3 minutes. Out of the 45, she just spent painting me as a hillbilly warlord. I stepped forward. This wasn't my arena. But I had something she didn't, facts. "I'm not here to respond to narratives," I began. "I'm here with legal property documents, which I've now distributed to your counsel and the sheriff." I held them up for anyone to see. "These are county-certified survey plats confirming this lake and land have belonged to my family since long before the HOA existed." A murmur careened across the room. I continued, voice calm. "I understand that some of you may feel entitled to a shared lake access, but I am protecting a historical property from misuse. All I've done is enforce a boundary that is legally mine." I paused. The room was still. Then I finished. "And for those concerned about safety, keeping uninvited guests off private shores is how safety works." Someone clapped once, then a few more. Karen's face didn't twitch, but her jaw set. She turned her mic off. And just like that, the real war began. 2 weeks later, it was 10:43 p.m. when the motion sensor woke me. Flashlight, gate clinking, voices. I pulled on jeans, grabbed my phone, and stepped quietly to the porch. There, silhouetted by my solar lamp, were 3 people. One with bolt cutters, another holding a chain, and Karen, phone out, recording. "Stop," I shouted. "You're trespassing." She grinned. "No, we're restoring access. This gate was illegally built. It's on my property." She raised the bolt cutter. Not for long. I started recording too. "This is being documented. You're damaging private property." She didn't care. She snapped the padlock in one crunch. The gate swung open, and a flashlight caught her face. Sheriff Tom, standing by his truck. He'd seen the alert too. Karen froze. "Put the cutter down," he said. She stepped back, stammering. I've got jurisdiction. HOA property rights." Tom sighed. "Ma'am, you're cutting private fencing at night, on camera, uninvited. That's property damage. That's the law." I'm going to need you to step back until we figure out how deep this goes." Her face blanched. She turned to me. "This is harassment." "No, Karen," I said. "This is a consequence." They left that night with warnings. But the pieces had shifted. Karen had crossed into criminal territory, and I now had recorded proof. The next morning, I filed a formal report. Photos of the broken lock, time-stamped incident log, camera footage, and a copy of Karen trying to override boundary law. The HOA board was notified by the sheriff's office the same day. A few members reached out privately. One said, "She lied to us about that being public land. We're starting to rethink everything." And for the first time, Karen's control slipped. If the first part of this war was about gates and property lines, the next phase was about something far bigger: control of the narrative. Karen had failed to break through my gate. She'd been caught on camera destroying it, and she was starting to lose her inner circle. But I knew she wasn't going to just walk away and knit socks quietly in a corner. No, when an HOA Karen feels her power slipping, she doesn't retreat. She restructures, redesigns, and retaliates. And her next move caught everyone off guard. 10 days after the bolt cutter incident, an envelope showed up. The HOA seal. Not unusual, but this one wasn't a violation letter or meeting invitation. It was a cease and desist. You are hereby ordered to stop harassing HOA officials, trespassing on HOA-managed property, and impeding authorized use of shared community amenities. Failure to comply within 3 days will result in further legal action. I smirked reading it. Then I looked closer. The letter stated that I was trespassing on my own land. Karen had filed a complaint claiming that the shared lake zone was managed by the HOA and protected by community agreement. That wasn't true, but she timed it perfectly. The same day, I saw 2 HOA members, clipboards in hand, surveying the lake from the public road, pointing, jotting notes. Karen wasn't just making claims. She was building a paper trail. She was preparing to rewrite the entire land boundary in the public's eyes and force me to fight on her battlefield, the court of perception and litigation. She won a lawsuit because she knew most people can't afford one, but she didn't know that I was ready. I was in Grace's office by Monday. She scanned the letter, adjusting her glasses. "Classic tactic," she muttered, "weaponizing an organization's resources to pressure a landowner. We call this strategic legal intimidation." "She can't win, can she?" I asked. "No, but she can make it annoying and expensive." I nodded slowly. That's when Grace asked the most important question. "You recording everything? Every move?" I replied, sliding a flash drive across the desk. "Gate footage, bolt cutter ambush, sheriff reports, trespass warnings, Karen's fake public meeting, even a voicemail where she threatened to fine me daily for obstruction." Grace smiled. "Good. Then let them file." Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I received something stronger than a warning letter. An official civil summons. The HOA, represented by Community Council, was suing me for restricting area access, property damage, defamation, emotional distress. They attached pictures of my gate. I nearly laughed out loud. They put photos of the gate as SHE broke into evidence. I called Grace. She was already drafting the counterclaim. While the legal rumbling was happening in the shadows, the lake once again looked peaceful on its surface. Deer still passed silently through the treeline at dusk. Dragonflies still flicked across the water in hypnotic zigzags. The birch trees, now summer thick, shook slightly under their own weight. Sometimes I'd stand on that dock and breathe. Even when pushed, even when threatened, I wasn't going to give up what I loved. And that makes everything worth fighting for. 2 days after I was served, I noticed something odd online. A Facebook event titled Community Lake Day Barbecue posted by the HOA National Park Hamburger Party Popper. Location? My lake. I blinked. Scanned the description. Let's celebrate our shared resources and make new memories. No need to worry about old disagreements. Family friendly. All invited. The comments. So excited. Will there be fishing for the kids? Thank you, Karen. My jaw dropped. Karen was throwing a public party on my property, days after suing me for blocking access. No one had asked permission. No one even notified me. Her plan wasn't just battle. It was invasion. The sheriff's not going to come out over a picnic, my friend Jim warned me as we sat on my porch, staring at the poster on my screen. No, I said quietly, but he'll come out for trespass during an active civil claim. Think she'll still do it? Oh, she's already printed the flyers, I said. This isn't about the party. It's about showing the neighborhood she's in control, even on land she doesn't own. Jim shook his head. This is going to get stupid. It did. It was a Saturday. Weather? Perfect. 82 degrees. Clear skies. Slight breeze. The perfect day for a lakeside gathering. Around 10 a.m., the cars started arriving. Minivans with bumper stickers. Moms setting out folding tables. Blue and white balloons tied to lawn chairs. Someone even wheeled in a grill. And there she was, dressed in a floral summer dress. Sunglasses. Clipboard. That same fake welcoming smile. Karen was showing the new neighbors where to put the food. I stood by the gate in silence. She ignored me. Completely. That was her move. If she pretended I didn't exist, then maybe I eventually wouldn't. Kids ran toward the lakeshore. One neighbor waved awkwardly, caught between allegiance and decency. Then a long, black sedan pulled up. Not a resident. Not a grill. The county sheriff's car. Sheriff Tom stepped out, hands behind his belt. Karen's eyes widened, but she walked over with confidence. "Oh, Sheriff, did you come for lunch?" she said. "No, ma'am," he replied. "I'm responding to a trespassing complaint." She froze. "Carl's using legal nonsense again," she huffed. "No, ma'am," he said. "The court date has been set. The land ownership is properly documented, and you are hosting an event without permission. But we're exercising access rights. Not until a judge says so." She turned red. "This is harassment." "No, Karen," I said, stepping forward. "This is enforcement." Sheriff Tom cleared his throat. "I'm formally advising that all persons not invited by the owner vacate the property." The party stopped. Mouths hung open. Burgers halfway flipped. Karen looked around, but no one backed her. Her guests started packing quietly. Some apologized to me on the way out. She stayed behind as cars left. Standing there, crushed under the weight of the truth finally catching up to her. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Maybe," I said, "but not as much as you will." She stared, a long, silent glare, and walked away. That was the last day the HOA ever tried to step foot on the lake. 2 days later, a letter came. Not from the HOA, from the county clerk. Case dismissed with prejudice. Counterclaim for damages validated. Karen Ward personally liable for lake party trespass. She lost. She was fined. And the HOA, after seeing that happen, dropped the whole fake lawsuit. That lake? Still mine. Still quiet. Still safe. But I keep the gate locked anyway, because someone will always want what they didn't build. The lake was quiet in the weeks following the trespass party, but not because the battle was over. No, it was more like the eerie calm that settles over a battlefield after the gun smoke fades, though the war hasn't really ended. Karen had been publicly embarrassed. The sheriff had escorted her guests off my property. Her lawsuit had fallen apart, but I knew better than to think she'd just accept defeat. What I didn't know was that her downfall wouldn't come from another fight with me. It would come from the very people she claimed to represent. It started one evening while I was tending the fire pit out back. I heard voices near the tree line. Two of my neighbors, Randy and Marcia, quietly arguing as they approached. "What do you mean we don't have access?" Randy said, his voice carrying just enough to reach me. Marcia sighed. "The documents are real. The sheriff told me themselves." Karen was wrong. The whole HOA believed her lies. I stayed quiet and listened. "I've lived here 15 years, Randy said. "And she had us thinking that lake was ours since day one." "That's not just a mistake, Marcia. That's manipulation." "And she told the board Sanders was trying to sue the HOA," she replied. That was another lie. There was silence. "I'm calling for a vote." Marcia said it with certainty. "A vote," Randy repeated. "To remove her," Marcia said. My heart thumped. This was different. This wasn't about the lake anymore. It was about justice. And karma was already setting the table. When the official HOA meeting was announced, special session required attendance. I got a text from the HOA secretary, Gina. We crossed paths a few times over the years. I always found her fair, if a little nervous around conflict. "Tonight, 7 p.m., Clubhouse. You should come. There's been developments." I didn't respond, but I showed up. From outside the clubhouse windows, I could hear the hum of neighborly voices. Whispering, rustling, kinship shifting under the weight of realigned trust. I walked inside. The atmosphere was different. The tables now sat in a circle, and there was no projector screen, no clipboard stack, no Karen perched at her throne. Instead, I saw faces, tired, uncertain, angry. At the front of the room stood the HOA vice president, Derek Johnson, ponytail, tall, dad jeans. I didn't know much about him, other than that he always brought brownie bites to neighborhood potlucks. And he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "We're here tonight," he began, voice trembling slightly, "to address a series of events that have fractured trust in the leadership of this board." People shifted in their seats. And then the doors opened. Karen marched in. She looked furious. Clipboard clutched, hair tighter than ever. And she had papers, always. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, marching straight to the front, heels clacking. "We're having a vote," Derek replied coolly. "Without me," she scoffed. "You can't have a board meeting without the president present." Derek pulled out a copy of the HOA charter, highlighted sections. "Actually," he said, tapping the page, "any board meeting may convert into a recall vote if 2 or more board members and 35% of resident signatures request it." Silence. Everyone turned toward the back table, where 2 fat stacks of paper lay. They were petitions. I counted names, more than 20 on each. Karen turned white. "You've been conspiring," she said slowly. "No," said Marcia from the back row. "We've been listening." Another neighbor chimed in, voice trembling. "You told us Carl was putting cameras in our trees. You said the lake was ours." "That's what I was told," Karen shouted. "No," said Derek. "You told us what you needed to be true." He held up his phone. "Emails you sent to code enforcement. Requests for unauthorized fines. Meeting minutes you deleted before posting. A private message calling Carl a nuisance who needs to be controlled." The crowd gasped. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. I stood by the back wall, watching it collapse. Her empire wasn't built on bylaws. It was built on fear, and now it crumbled from the inside. I motioned to remove Karen Ward as HOA president, effective immediately, Derek said. "I second," said a voice. Then another. They handed out ballots, small slips of paper and pens. People voted quietly. I didn't vote, of course. I wasn't a member. But I watched them. Every single one. Good neighbors. Some fooled. Others fearful, but all ready to wake up. It took 7 minutes to tally. Derek cleared his throat. "Motion carries. 34 votes for removal. 5 against." A hush rippled. Karen was frozen. "This is illegal," she whispered. "No," said Marcia. "This is democracy." "And dignity," added Randy. She sputtered, then stormed out, knocking over a stack of maps, slamming the clubhouse door so hard the frame rattled. The remaining board sat down with me after the meeting. "We're so sorry," Derek said, voice softening. "We should have looked deeper," Gina added. "We trusted her." I nodded. "I don't expect anyone to apologize," I said. "Not everyone knew, but I'm glad you dealt with her the right way." "We want to make things right," Derek added. "Please accept this, at least symbolically." He handed me a jar of fresh honey, homemade by Marcia's husband. I laughed, not at the gift, at the humanity in it. After all this battle, people still found ways to show kindness. 2 days later, a front-page headline in the local paper read, "HOA president removed after illegal trespass claims, sheriff intervention." It was written by a reporter from a suburban desk blog. Someone must have tipped them off. The article was fair, citing county land maps, sheriff reports, and meeting recordings that had been public domain. It painted a picture not of villains and heroes, but of power misused. And people shared it. A lot. Before the end of the week, the HOA had dissolved its legal complaint against me, quietly. Karen had resigned fully from the board and, rumor has it, moved in with her sister 2 towns over. The new HOA president? A guy named Mateo who wore flannel and started every meeting by saying, "No property fines unless someone's lighting fireworks inside a garage." Okay, we still smile about that. One afternoon, just as September crested in an early leaf-turning gold, I walked down to the lake. The water was still, calm, like it had been watching everything too, waiting for the right moment to settle. I sat on the dock, letting my foot skim the ripples. Grandpa used to say that land remembers who listens. I listened. No bolt cutters, no shouting, just quiet. But even in that peace, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't quite over yet. Not until I did one more thing. To make sure no one, HOA, new board, or the next Karen, ever try to take what wasn't theirs again. Where I make a move that guarantees this lake stays protected forever. And Karen gets a final, long overdue goodbye. If you've ever stared out across a quiet lake at dawn, you know water holds memories. I knew it the day my grandfather first took my hand and told me the lake was part of my legacy. And I felt it again now, sitting on the old wooden dock, feeling that breeze brush my face after everything we'd gone through. The battles were over, yes, but the victory wasn't complete. Not yet. Karen was gone, but what she represented, opportunistic authority, paper-thin bullying, the belief that title equals ownership, that could always return with a new face. The lake was quiet today, too quiet, like it was waiting for me to finish what had been started long before Karen ever burst through the gate. I stood, and I walked toward the county building, because it was time to make this lake untouchable. I spent 3 hours with county officials that morning, not just confirming the boundaries of my property, which had been done months ago, but formalizing something deeper, a conservation easement. Now, I'm no lawyer, but Grace had explained what it could do. Put plainly, it's legal armor. Under this system, the land becomes a protected habitat, zoned, registered, safeguarded. No one except the owner and mapped heirs can change, develop, or regulate access ever again. More importantly, it cannot be subject to HOA rules. Ever. It was like stapling the deed to the Constitution. The officials stamped it. I signed. Grace signed. The county logged it publicly. The lake became simultaneously private and permanently protected. Legacy locked. A month passed. I'd heard nothing from Karen until that morning. My neighbor, Jim, texted, "You won't believe this. Karen's back. Tonight. She's calling a post-resignation assembly." "What does she want?" I replied, "Not sure, but she's invited the press. And she's bringing files." I stared at the phone. Then I smiled. Perfect. The clubhouse was full again that night. Not like the past meetings, nervous and whispery. No, this one buzzed with popcorn excitement. The rumor mill was on steroids. People smell drama. Karen walked in wearing a sharp blazer, dark glasses, with a manila folder under her arm. She stormed the front of the room where a makeshift lectern stood. "I've called this meeting," she said, tapping the mic, "because I can no longer remain silent while this community is lied to. Here we go." She pulled out a stack of copies and started handing them out. "Exhibit A," she said loudly. "A record of the repeated actions of harassment, aggression, and historical errors that the former HOA board allowed to stand." She smiled triumphantly as the papers reached the back. "Carl has deceived us. He manipulated land documents, intimidated officials, and convinced the county to ignore community filings. But today, we re-examine the facts." The crowd murmured. Then I opened the paperwork, and I almost laughed. The evidence she presented? Blurry pictures of a gate. Old letters she'd written with no signatures. Email screenshots she printed and highlighted herself. She had no evidence, just confidence. But even confidence can't survive receipts. I stood slowly. First time I'd spoken in front of this whole group since the ambush meeting weeks ago. "Karen," I began, "you seem to be missing something." She glared. "I'm missing nothing," she said sharply. "No," I replied, "but your folder is missing something." I reached my bag and pulled out a clear, stamped document. The seal glinted across the room. "This," I held it up, "is a county-registered, court-validated conservation deed, meaning this land is now protected by state law." The room went still. No one, not even the county, can alter this lake land or its boundary without my express consent. No HOA, no developer, not you. "But this is," she stammered, reading it from across the aisle. "You see, all you ever had, Karen," I continued, voice echoing, "was bluster. And while you were threatening fines and calling meetings, I was quietly protecting my family's legacy the right way." People began reading the document on their phones. It had been logged publicly that morning. Eyes widened, heads nodded, and then, just to make sure the universe stamped its approval, something incredible happened. Derek, the new HOA president, stepped forward. He held a folder of his own. "We've been holding on to something," he said. He opened it. "These are anonymous whistleblower emails sent to the HOA account, detailing and used budget money from last year that somehow got spent on hidden legal fees." He looked up. "Fees filed in your name, Karen." Murmurs. Her face turned ghost white. She tried to speak. "It's not what it looks like." But the room wasn't listening. They were done. Karen slowly folded her papers. She tucked them into her bag. She tried once more to speak, to grandstand. But her voice wavered. No one even booed. She just became irrelevant. She left quietly. The sound of her heels clicking out the front door was the last noise she ever made in that clubhouse. A woman who tried to take what wasn't hers, with words instead of weapons, and got burned by truth. A week later, I invited the neighborhood to the lake. No gate, no fuss, just a quiet community sleepover by the dock flyer I handed out myself. That night, a handful of families showed up. Some kids brought fishing rods. Someone brought hot cocoa. A team brought that same crystal blue speaker everyone uses at backyard BBQs. As the sun dipped below the trees, I sat on the edge of the dock with Jim. "You pulled off," he said. "It wasn't about winning," I replied. "It was about keeping something sacred safe from anybody who thinks paper power becomes real power." He nodded. We watched the gentle waves. My dog snored in the back of my truck. And for once, everything was truly calm. Before everyone packed up that night, one of the kids, maybe 8 years old, walked up to me. "Mr. Sanders?" she asked shyly. "Yeah. My mom says you protected this lake," she said. "Because your granddad told you to." I smiled. Something like that. She nodded sagely. My granddad taught me fishing too, she said. I think you're a hero. I didn't know what to say. Just a warm lump in my throat. I still walk that lake at sunrise. Sometimes I see deer. Sometimes I see herons skimming the water like origami gliders. And once, not long ago, I noticed something new, a plaque. One that someone in the neighborhood must have put up in the night. It stands near the birch line. Polished copper. Simple engraving. In honor of Earl Sanders, who protected this land so all could enjoy it. I stood there for a long time, hand on the cool metal, breathing the weight of what legacy means. It's not just what you inherit. It's what you guard, what you protect for those who come after. Karen learned too late that power doesn't come from position. It comes from truth and standing firm. Even when someone screams, I have rights. At your gate. Fire loved this story. Want more real-life revenge and justice episodes? Make sure to subscribe and drop your own HOA tale in the comments. Who knows? You might just inspire the next viral showdown. Folded hands, thanks for being part of this journey. And remember, some land is built on money. Other land is built on memory. Only one kind is worth fighting for.